And ASEAN boast a myriad of economic potentials, which is drawing in many external partners to collaborate. Now, one such partner is Australia, specifically Western Australia. And joining me today is the Premier of Western Australia, His Excellency Mr. Roger Cook, who is here in Jakarta, Indonesia, to attend the ASEAN Business and Investment Summit, along with attending various other official trips and meetings as well. Premier Roger Cook, thank you so much for speaking to See Today.
Thank you for the opportunity.
And welcome back to Indonesia. How's your trip so far?
It's wonderful. It's always great to be back in Indonesia. I was in Jakarta in December last year, so it's terrific to be back. We have brought the biggest delegation for a trade mission in Western Australia's history. Over 120 business and political leaders from WA to engage with our ASEAN friends, but of course, deeply engage with our great partners in Indonesia.
Right, so as you said, it's the biggest delegation in Western Australia's history. So tell us about some of the goals Western Australia's delegation has with Indonesia and also with ASEAN as well. What kind of trade, business, investment opportunities are you seeking to explore with both Indonesia and ASEAN?
So Western Australia is the front-facing part of Australia to Southeast Asia. In Western Australia, we consider our engagement with Asia as a critical economic strategy. So the opportunity to come here, particularly for the ASEAN Business Summit, is a great one for us. We value very highly. We are looking at specific industries in this particular mission, which include energy and critical minerals, creative industries and tourism, international education and primary industries. And we are taking the opportunity to move from Jakarta to Surabaya and Denpasar as part of this trade mission to really continue to grow the great partnership between Western Australia and Indonesia.
Right, so of course the global economy has been it's been challenging as of late. 2022 in particular was very challenging with high inflation and so forth. But a lot of ASEAN countries, including Indonesia, they still saw positive and high growth. So just tell us more about what excites Western Australian businesses in regards to Indonesia and ASEAN.
Well, in Western Australia, we are trying to both diversify our industries and we're trying to diversify our markets. So the opportunity to engage with exciting economies like Indonesia is obviously a very important one for us. We know that Indonesia has big ambitions around becoming an electric vehicle manufacturer or a battery manufacturing nation. Western Australia has the largest deposits of lithium in the world. Right. We are the majority global supplier of lithium to the world today. Over 52% of all the world's lithium comes from Western Australia. So we see a great opportunity to engage with our friends in Indonesia, particularly around the supply of critical minerals as part of that global supply chain to continue to diversify our economy and diversify our markets.
Right, maybe we can speak into more detail regarding that collaboration between Western Australia and Indonesia. As I understand, Western Australia and Indonesia already signed an MOU earlier this year regarding critical minerals as well. There was also a 2023-2025 plan of action. So can you just talk to us about the collaborations that have been agreed upon so far? Tell us more in detail what they are, and are they already in the phase of concrete contracts?
Well, we continue to engage with through Kadin around creating an interface between our critical mineral miners and the critical mineral customers or manufacturers in industry here in Indonesia. So what we are trying to do is to build those relationships, which ultimately will eventuate in terms of contracts and long-term supply chain partnerships. Right. So as you mentioned, we've got the MOU and now the plan of action with Kadin. That plan of action was signed in Sydney in front of President Widodo. This is an important part of how we continue to grow our industries in Western Australia, but how we can be good partners with such important economies of the Southeast Asian region, such as Indonesia.
Right, and of course, to make electric vehicle batteries, as you mentioned, Western Australia has the largest reserve of lithium. We need lithium and we need nickel. Indonesia has the largest nickel reserve.
Yes. It's the perfect partnership between Indonesia and Western Australia.
Exactly, it's a win-win partnership.
Yeah.
And Indonesia is sort of developing its electric vehicle battery industries as well. It's next year, it's planning to begin operations, the largest one in the world. So tell us more about maybe that cooperation as well. Is Western Australia seeking to maybe export more lithium to Indonesia, or how will that work?
Yeah, it's interesting because primarily most of our lithium at the moment goes to China as part of their large battery manufacturing capacity. So we are continuing to grow our relationships between our miners who have the license to mine and process those ores, and with industry in Indonesia to build those long-term supply chain partnerships. It's about creating those partnerships, so potentially Indonesian companies becoming equity stakeholders as part of off-take agreements with the miners. The other thing we're trying to do in Western Australia is to move up the value chain. So traditionally we would export spodumene as part of that value chain. Now we have aspirations to continue to grow our lithium hydroxide manufacturing capacity so we can be direct inputs into the manufacturing process of lithium-ion batteries by value adding to our ore exports.
Right. So the focus of the downstreaming Western Australia will focus in Western Australia itself. How about in Indonesia?
Well, Indonesia obviously has that great manufacturing capacity. It's a manufacturing powerhouse. So we're looking to combine Western Australia's critical mineral mining capacity, processing of those ores, and then having a direct input into the supply chain of the manufacturers here in Indonesia.
Right. Do you have an estimation on how long it will, or when the contracts will begin?
We'd anticipate there will be partnerships coming out of the meetings we're having this week, and ultimately we're looking forward to those being contracts which can ultimately be part of an offtake agreement. In Western Australia, traditionally our partners in the mining sector will have deep contracts or partnerships, usually through shared equity, in the mining operations themselves as they develop the ore body and then the processing of those ores, and then that puts that equity stakeholder at the front end of the offtake agreements in relation to that mine. Right. So it's a longer term plan, but an important one for both our economies.
Right. There's no estimation on maybe what year it will begin?
Look, I think everyone's in a hurry to decarbonise their economies.
Sure.
This is a global challenge for all our regional partners, and we want to make sure that we can move this as quickly as possible.
Right. Is there a large sense of optimism in terms of sort of collaborating with Indonesia, in particular with the critical minerals, or are there maybe some issues that need to be ironed out?
Look, there's huge optimism. I think that's the reason why President Widodo was so focused in terms of oversighting the agreement that we have with Kadin. Certainly Australia understands Indonesia's aspirations in relation to critical mineral processing and battery manufacture. We want to be part of that supply chain as part of the great partnership that exists between Indonesia and Australia.
Right. And also, as you mentioned, of course, the world is really wanting to accelerate that move to decarbonize ASEAN bloc as well. Earlier this year in the 42nd ASEAN Summit, ASEAN leaders adopted a declaration to develop a regional electric vehicle ecosystem. So not only Indonesia, but all the other ASEAN countries combining their efforts to develop a regional ecosystem. What are some of Western Australia's thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, look, I think I commend ASEAN for taking a more regional approach. By solving this wicked problem as quickly as possible, we're going to have to collaborate and share technology, capability, and production. And so it's an important opportunity to continue to grow the partnership between Australia and our ASEAN neighbours. Western Australia has an abundance of solar, wind and land, so we are looking to become a renewable energy powerhouse, not only decarbonising our economy, but assisting our regional partners in the ASEAN region to decarbonise their economies as well, particularly when you look at the opportunities that exist around renewable hydrogen and other forms of renewable energy. We're going to have to collaborate. We're going to have to work closely together in partnership if we're going to get to net zero by 2050 or 2060. We have to have a sense of urgency, and we have to move in with the deliberate steps to really make sure that we can work together to solve these problems.
Are there any sort of firm plans maybe to collaborate with other ASEAN countries apart from Indonesia, especially in regards to critical minerals and electric vehicle?
Well, already we have around about 30 renewable hydrogen projects along the coast of Western Australia. If all those projects come to fruition, and some will drop away, others will come on board,
right.
we will get around about 100 gigawatts of renewable energy by 2030, with 200 gigawatts by 2040. That represents a huge opportunity, not only in terms of critical minerals, but in terms of green steel and other forms of production which takes place utilising renewable energy. So you see that the future around ASEAN and the Western Australian economies is one of integration and collaboration, sharing an abundance of energy on one hand with the manufacturing capacity of the ASEAN region on the other.
I read that Jakarta and Perth, the distance is closer than Perth to Sydney.
That's right.
So maybe tell us more about maybe other collaborations you're seeking to expand on while you're here in Indonesia, especially in tourism as well.
Yeah, we consider ourselves an important neighbour for the ASEAN region. Western Australia is an Australian state, but with Asian themes.
Right.
And so we want to continue to grow the opportunities that come from that proximity and the partnerships, particularly around international education, vocational education and training. We've got great opportunities in our creative industries and in tourism. Primary industries represents a significant opportunity. We have an abundance of produce, and through direct aviation links, we can bring that fresh produce into our Southeast Asian partners' markets to continue to grow everyone's opportunities around the global food security. So there are abundance of opportunities to grow the partnership between Western Australian and our Southeast Asian partners, and this mission is part of my government's strategy to continue to make sure that we can bring Western Australian companies to meet great partners in these regions so that we can get terrific contracts and build those people-to-people, business-to-business ties and have mutual prosperity coming from that trade partnership.
Okay. Just very lastly, I want to ask you, as I mentioned earlier, of course, the global economy right now is not, it's still recovering from, say, the impacts of the pandemic. Are those kind of challenges in the global economy, how are they going to impact sort of business and trade relations with Indonesia and Western Australia?
You're right. I mean, the pandemic and the subsequent inflationary impacts of the pandemic and the potential downturn of economic activity that comes with that is a challenge, but it's a challenge that we can confront together by continuing to have diversified and strong partnerships right across the region. We can build more resilient responses to these impacts of our regional economy, and as a result of that, get through these issues much more effectively. So partnerships and regional partnerships between countries and between Western Australia and the Southeast Asian economies is the way that we will endure these impacts on as a result of the global downturn.
All right, so partnership and sort of collaborating together, there's no challenge too tough to tackle.
We can do it together.
Right, great. All right, Premier of Western Australia, Your Excellency, Premier Roger Cook, thank you so much for speaking to See Today, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your trips and visits across Indonesia.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much.